If you haven't been able to stay consistent with good habits, it's probably, bud, because you're doing everything wrong. Because what you should try and be focusing on instead of self-improvement is self-destruction. Now, just hold on to that one a moment, because in other words, you need to destroy your old self before you can even start thinking about building your new self. Too many people are trying to build good habits on top of a broken foundation. Imagine trying to build this luxury house on top of really old and shitty bricks. It just wouldn't work, would it? It would just inevitably fall apart, right? And this works the exact same way for building a man into his best self. You can't build an amazing man on top of somebody who is kind of a degenerate. You've got to eliminate that person first. So let's talk about how you can go about doing that. What you need to do is create a clean slate. You need to remove everything about you, or as much as you can about you, that is holding you back. So just think about all these things, and I'll give you a couple of examples. You want to be doing things like removing processed foods from your diet. You don't want to be eating things like this, because if you're eating things like this, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. The stuff that this does to your stomach, the stuff that it does to your mindset, believe it or not, it really does affect your mindset. I mean, you're pretty much eating chemicals at this point. You're eating cardboard, eating plastics, all these microplastics that are in these processed foods, and it's just terrible for you. You don't even want to be... I'm scared to actually think too much about it, to think about how much shit I've eaten in my childhood and growing up as a man. I'm probably 90% plastic, as are you. It's just not good, boys. You want to be eating as real food as possible. So by removing processed foods, you're going to be gaining a huge advantage. You also want to be stopping consuming things like the news, because when you do this, you're literally inputting negativity into your brain. This is going to affect you in your daily life. Literally every single thing that you do is going to be impacted by the media that you consume on a daily basis. And you might be watching this and thinking, Christ, Myron, this is a bit far-fetched. You're chatting out your ass here. But it's not true, right? Because the things that you put into your brain, they might even go to the back of your mind. They might even go to your subconscious. So you might not necessarily realize that they've got this direct impact on you. But they do. They definitely do. So if you feel low, if you feel depressed, there's a good chance it's because the stuff that you're consuming, the people you're hanging around with, are inputting just negativity into your life. And the next thing is to, potentially stop thinking and obsessing about what other people think of you. Because the truth is, mate, no one gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit about you. So if you want to stop drinking alcohol, if you want to stop smoking weed, and maybe you're a bit worried about what your mates might think of you because you might not be cool, or you might be a loser, or whatever they might think, who gives a shit, mate, right? You don't need that. So get rid of all the bad habits as much as you can. Create a clean slate and detox yourself, okay? So to focus on eliminating bad habits first, I would suggest creating a streak sheet. Okay, so just how you might see on Snapchat, when you communicate and send snaps with someone every single day, you create that little fire emoji, don't you? And it has a little number next to it, because that's how many times you've been snapping them on a consecutive basis daily, right? So if you've snapped them 10 times in a row, then you're going to have number 10 with this little flame thing here. And you can also almost do this with a streak sheet. So you can write down the bad habits that, you personally do. You know what they are. You don't need me to tell you. Everyone's different, right? You want to write on this piece of paper all the bad habits that you're doing. And then beside that, you can maybe draw a little column. And what you want to do is actually start a little kind of tally. And for every day that you don't do that bad habit, you just put in a little mark to add to the tally. And let's say, for example, you fail, right? And that's going to happen. That's absolutely fine, okay? You want to put, that you failed. You want to mark it down as a cross to say that you failed. And what that's going to do is eventually it's going to show you which habits you struggle with the most and which bad habits you succumb to the most. And that's when you can, target that habit even more so. So this is a really good exercise. And I actually have a bit of an example about this for my own personal story, because when I first started my boxing, Tenner or whatever, like the boxing chapter of my life, when I first had a couple of fights, I decided that I would have to eliminate all or as many bad habits as possible. So at that time, I would have been drinking alcohol. I would have been eating terrible food, processed food, as I've just mentioned, for you not to be doing. And I decided that if I removed these things first, before I actually started increasing the intensity of my training and, training for these fights, I would be in a much better off position. And I tell you what, I'm really, really glad that I did this, because it made the whole training thing so much easier for me. I felt healthier overall. My mental state was just there, and I'm not saying that I couldn't have done these fights without removing these bad habits, but it just made everything so much easier for me, and it allowed me to progress a lot quicker. Remember that analogy that I just gave you about building, a house on broken bricks? It doesn't really work, and inevitably it's going to fall down at some point. So just consider that. And now the next things that I'd suggest is that once you've, self-destructed and eliminated bad habits, that's when you can start to consider building new ones. And my suggestion to build these new habits is to create a habit tracker. And very similar to that piece of paper that I've just talked to you about, the streak sheet that I've just mentioned, you can do something very similar, and you can write a habit tracker on a piece of paper. And if you're not sure what this is, literally, mate, just go onto Google and search in habit tracker. And essentially what it is a document that you're going to hang up on your wall, and it's going to have a list of all the habits that you want to start doing, or that you think will improve your life. And beside that, you can also start to do this kind of tally up, right? This kind of streak to show that you're staying consistent with these habits. And my suggestion for you, as in the best habits that you should be starting off with, are diet and training. And that's because these are kind of like the foundation level, or the strongest and securest bricks to start building your house. This is what's going to give you that really strong base. And then once you have those two habits knuckled down, that's when you can start to consider other things, like business, and you can start reading and learning new things, and potentially adding in meditation and, mindset stuff. That's when you can start to kind of build upon the foundation. So they're my suggestions, my friend. That's how you actually self-improve. It's by trying self-destruction first of all. And I don't actually think I've heard anybody say that before on YouTube, but honestly, this is my advice to you. If you want to get big and strong and you want a diet plan, my friend, go to the description, because I've made one for you for free. Believe you can, and you're more than halfway there, pal.